Alright, hey y'all. We're going to, like I said, walk through how to install Python and an editor. My name's Justin, and I work for Imagicode, and we just wanted to put on some lessons while everyone's kind of stuck at home. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a little bit of Python. So the first thing you want to do is actually download and install Python. So to do that, you're just going to go to www.python.org/downloads, and you're going to download the latest version. If you're on Windows, you'll download that version. If you're on Mac, that version, Linux, so on and so forth. If you are on a Chromebook, you will not be able to download and install this, but we'll get to what you need to do about that in a minute. So what you're going to do is you're just going to click the download Python 3.8.2 or whatever is the newest, and you are going to OK the installer. I'm not going to because I already have it, and it'll run you through the process of getting Python installed on your computer. So once you have that all set up, I'm going to go ahead and show you, or I'll show the people with Chromebooks what they should do. They should go to this website, Replit. So it's repl.it, and it's a site that looks like this. You can make an account, or you can just go ahead and click New REPL, and then click Python and create it. So then once you've created it, you can actually do your coding in the browser right here, and then all of your output is going to pop up over here. But like I said, if you can download it, it's probably going to work a little bit better for you. So I would suggest go ahead and download and install Python. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. So once you've done that, you're going to then go to this next website, which is codewith.mu. And this is the editor that we're going to be using for this class. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, is download it. Make sure you're downloading the correct version for your system. So I have a Mac, obviously, so I am going to be using the Mac version. If you're on Windows, you'll be using the Windows version. And I'll just give a little bit of time for you guys to get all that downloaded. I know it's a lot, but if you have any questions, let me know. I am here in the chat and also on our Discord. If you need access to our Discord, you can just type in the command into the YouTube chat, and it should pop up with the link. So it should be !Discord, and that should pop up there for you if that's something you would be interested in. Alright, so I've given some time. If I'm going too fast, please let me know in chat. Like I said, I can take as much time as I need or as you need. We're not in a rush. So first, let's do a little conversation about what programming is and why I chose Python for this. So programming, I know, gets kind of a scary rap, right? It can be associated with a lot of math and a lot of other things that might be a little difficult or scary for you, but it's honestly not that difficult once you get to know it, and Python is honestly a really fun and easy language to get involved with. So that's why I chose that. Programming, I'm sure a lot of you already know, is just making things easier on us, letting the computer do something instead of us doing it. So instead of doing these massive calculations, or instead of going through PDFs and converting them into Word documents or whatever, it lets us do all these things much quicker than we could do. Instead of spending like 3-4 hours doing that, you could actually just spend like an hour coding it and then have it run and be done in maybe like 10 minutes if you have a really big amount of stuff that needs to be done. So like I said, you don't really need to worry about knowing any math or anything like this, and we're going to start from scratch, so you don't actually have to have any kind of coding knowledge at all, so it'll be pretty easy. And we're just going to slowly walk through, and this will build upon itself once we get going. And we'll start going through different things, little easier things, the basics of Python, how it's supposed to be written, how it's supposed to be typed. Yeah, so if you're on a Chromebook, you're going to have to use that website I showed you, the Replit. So you just go to repl.it. And I'll give it a second to load up here, and it will look like this. You can either go ahead and make yourself an account, or just go ahead and click New REPL, like I suggested earlier, and then you can make your account afterwards. And then I would just click right here where it says Python, because that's the language we're going to be using, and then you click Create REPL. And it'll bring you to this editing page, just like this. And I'll go and walk through this just so everybody is kind of comfortable with using this as well. So you can see here you have your editing window here. This is where you'll actually type out your code and be able to run your code. And then over here, this is where your output will be. If you have any questions about Replit, just let me know. I can help you out with it. It also has your files over here. You can add new files. We're just going to stay in one for right now. The beginning stuff will be pretty simple. There won't be a lot of need for multiple files or anything like that. And then once you have it going, you'll be able to click Run and see your code. I'm going to hold off on doing that for a little bit so that we can kind of get everybody in here and going. If you are interested in using Replit, go ahead and get that going. And like I said, you can sign up whenever you feel like you're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through the Moo editor as well, just so that everyone kind of sees this. This is what it looks like. Yours might be white. It's I've got mine set to dark mode. You can switch between whichever ones you like. I'm going to stick with that one, I think. Yeah. And then you'll be able to write your code here, and a little box will pop up later on when we click the Run button up here at the top. So let me just check all the chats really quickly. All right. So if everyone's able to follow along, we'll go ahead and get started with some really simple code here. So what we'll do, the first thing, it's basically the first thing that everybody does when you start to learn how to code. I'm sure some of you who may have experience have made this program before, because it's really simple, and it's literally, like I said, the first thing you learn in a lot of coding languages. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have our console print us out a message. So the way that Python handles your printing, right, is you just type this word print, and then you have to put it inside of parentheses. Now this is a new thing for Python 3 that you have to do. In Python 2, you wouldn't type this. You would go like this, and that would work. But as of now, since we've upgraded to Python 3, we'll be doing it like this. And that is our first valid line of code. You can see that I have these two parentheses surrounding it, and then I have the quotation marks around hello world. And the reason we have the quotation marks around hello world is basically to tell our program, or to tell Python, that this is a string, this is a word. It's basically a collection of characters, letters, and things like that. So that's how Python knows that it's dealing with a string. So now, if we just go over here and we click Run, take a second. Gotta love that beach ball. Alright, so it's going to pop up and it's going to say Save As. So you can just type in whatever you want to name this file. I'm going to name it hello_world and save it. And just so you know, all Python files end in .py. That's just the kind of like .jpeg or .gif or anything like that. So now we have clicked it and we've saved it and we've clicked Run, and you'll see it pops up down here with this little console, and you can see our sentence. It says hello world. So you can really put whatever you want in here. You can put welcome to the lesson, and then stop it and run it again, and you'll see it'll update to be welcome to the lesson. So like I said, you can put your name, you can put really whatever you want, and it's going to pop up. So another thing you can do is, if you really wanted to, you could put a number inside of those, and it'll print the number. Or you could do it like this, and it will also still print that number to the console. Because this is treating this this as an integer, which is just a fancy word for a number that isn't, doesn't have any decimal places or anything like that. So let me just run over here to our replet, and I'll just show you that it works the same way here as well. So again, all I'm going to do is say print and give it a value. Make sure it's inside of those quotation marks. If it's not, then it will probably yell at you. Let's see what happens here. There it goes. So it's working. So if I take away these and try to click run, you'll see I got an invalid syntax error. It pops up in red like this. So it's basically saying this is supposed to be a string. Why didn't you put any quotation marks around it? And when I do, that fixes it. But if I were to leave one of those off and click run, it would once again give me an end of line while scanning string literal error. This basically means that it's looking for another one of these to close out, and it's not finding one. So it's upset and wants you to make sure you have that. Another thing that you could probably note is that you can also use single quotations if that's more your style. It doesn't really matter, they work the same way. When I click run, you'll see that it does the exact same thing. So that's just a very simple first program, easy to do. Let me know if any of that's confusing, if I'm going too quickly. I can slow down, but that's the basic of how to write a Hello World program. Like I said, it's pretty much the first thing that every programmer learns. So you can now call yourself a programmer. You've written some code. So the next thing we'll talk about is how to do math in Python, right? A lot of people dislike math, and that's completely fair. So why should we do it? Why can't we just have our computer do it? So it's really easy, actually. So we can do a couple different things here. I'm going to keep this print statement because I want the answer to our question to be printed out to the console every single time. So I can do something as easy as saying 5 plus 3 right here. And then now when I click run, you'll see it evaluates our answer here. Now, that's a pretty simple calculation, obviously. You can do minus, and it'll pop up and work. You could do multiplication, really anything, and you can obviously string these things together as well. And that will work there. So that's a pretty nice little thing you can do. It's easy. You can do lots of quick math that way. So, like I was talking about earlier, these numbers right here, when I just have like a 5 or a 3 or something like that, are called integers. So integers are a data type that basically just means they don't have a decimal point on them. So, anything from negative 1,000 to positive 1,000. Really any number is going to be in this category. So the other type of data type we're going to talk about right now is floating point numbers. So you can use something like 1.3, and that would be a floating point. Or 1.35 or 3.1415926, and all of those would be floating point numbers. And you can do the same operations with these. And it'll work great. And you can see here I used one floating point and one regular, and that's fine. Python handles that without any kind of issue. If I wanted to, I could also just make this a floating point so you could see that it's doing the math for us. So that's two types of data type. The next type of data type that we're going to talk about, or that we already really have talked about, is strings, obviously, right? So our string can be something like one letter, or it can be multiple letters, or it can be sentences, even. You can have a sentence that says, like, this is a sentence. And then it runs. So those three data types are really the three most basic types of data types that you can mess around with. So let's talk about something a little different. So there's a concept in computer science called concatenation. It's a really long word. I'll go and spell it out. It looks like that. Concatenation is just a fancy word for saying you want to take two words, two strings, and push them together. So, for instance, if I wanted to concatenate two strings together, I would do this. So I have cat, that's one string, plus dog, another string. And when I click run, you'll see it pushes them both together just like that. If you want to get really into it, you could even make sentences this way by doing like, I am coding, right? So now when we click it, we'll see, well, that's not quite what we wanted, right? So it's pushed everything together. So the way you can fix that is either you can add a space after the I or before the am, whichever way, and then before the coding. I'm going to do it like that so that now when I click run, it says I am coding, like a real sentence. So that's a really great way to be able to take in input and then shoot it back out. Maybe you want to have some kind of prompt that says like ask for your user's name, like that, and you would get some input and then you would concatenate it. So you would do something like this and put a name like that. So now you'll see name Justin. Easy as that. So that is how concatenation works, but I'm going to show you one thing about concatenation that you need to keep in mind. So if you're trying to do like this, name, and you put in a number, let's see what happens here. Alright, so you can see here we got an error because we're giving it a string and trying to concatenate an int onto the end of it. So a way you can get around this obviously is to just put your quotation marks around it like that, and now it's going to work. So that's just a really easy way to deal with that if that's the way you want to go. So there's also one other, there are a bunch of cool tricks with Python, but another one that I really like is being able to say something like your name, right? And then multiplying it by 5. So if you have an idea of what's going to happen here, let's see. You can see it has now printed that string 5 times right next to each other. I can also add the space at the end, and you'll see we've now split our code up just by adding that one little space at the end. So that's really great. So, but let's try one more thing here. Let's try multiplying one string by another and see what happens. Alright, so you can see here you can't multiply a sequence by a non-int of type string. So, as you can see here, I can't say Justin times Bob. And I also can't multiply it by 3.2. So if I just wanted to do, 3 of these and then half my name, can't do it this way. That's not going to work. It only accepts integer values. Okay. So I'm going to talk about another concept really quickly. Like I said, if I'm going too quickly or too fast, let me know in our Discord or in our chat over here. I am on both, so just let me know. The next thing we're going to talk about, really simple, something called variables. So if you ever need to store a value like I was talking about earlier, it's really easy. You can just set a variable. And if you don't know what a variable is, it's basically like a box. That's the best way I know to describe it. So if you have a container and you want to put some kind of data or something inside of it. So we have a box. Let's have a variable called box. So all we do is just type out whatever we want to name it. Generally when you're naming variables, you want to give them a very descriptive name so you know what you're talking about. So that might not be best. Let's do something like age. So this will hold my age value. And then all I have to do right there is say age equals and then my number. So now I have recorded that number in the age variable, and if I type print age, you'll see that it prints that number, because basically it's looking back at this variable, finding out what is contained inside that variable, and then going with it. So the nice thing about this is I can actually change that variable at any time. So if I wanted to make the variable something different, let's do it this way. Let's do age equals 25, print the age, and then we'll change the value. So let's say I've grown a year in the past 3 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 26 there, and you'll see now when I click run that it says 25, and then that variable changes value to 26, and then it prints the new value. So you can also do mathematical operations in this. So if you wanted to just do 25 plus 5 right there, and I'm going to put some white space around this plus. You don't have to do that, but I just think it looks nicer. So there you go. So now you can see I can do that mathematical equation right there, and I end up with 30. So there's a bunch of other stuff you can do, and we'll talk about a little bit of that in a second. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting about this is, say you want to increment, say you want to go up one number. Instead of just saying age equals 26, or saying age equals 25 plus 1, which requires you to know what the value of age is. Sometimes you won't know that value. You can actually just call that variable and then add plus 1 to it. So now, when you say age equals age plus 1, it's basically taking the age variable, adding 1 to it, and then storing it back in that same variable. So now, you'll see, again, 25, 26. Now, there's another kind of cool thing about Python, and that is that you can do these little guys right here. So if you look, I have age plus plus. So instead of typing out age equals age plus 1 like that, I can just do age plus plus, and we should get the same result. We did not. That's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. So we can also just do age plus equals 1, and that might work out a little bit better for us. Let's try that. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so you do age plus equals 1, and you'll see that you get that updated value. Obviously, you don't have to use the number 1 there. You can use the number 5 if you wanted to, and it will update your value that way as well. It's just a quicker way to type out age plus 1, just like that. So just a quicker way, and you can use any kind of function you want with this. So if you wanted to do that, like a multiplication equals, you could do that as well, and it will just store it back into that value. You could do a divide, and it would store it back in that value as well. So, all right, I'm going to keep going here. So that's a really great way. The other important thing is to remember that you can use this variable to store any kind of data type. So if we wanted to put, a string here, we totally could. We could put age equals, I'm going to do name actually. That's a little bit easier for me. So I'll do name and like that. So now again, I can click print or type print and then name, and you'll see that it will do what I want it to do. So you can do all the same things that you would have done with math. Obviously, you could, go here and do name plus equals Justin. And let's see if this will work in our favor here. There you go. So you see it's now concatenated those two strings. So there's a bunch of stuff you can do with variables. It's really helpful for when you're trying to take user input. So if you just, have some kind of input. So if you were asking a question and they were able to put their name or something like that. So let's just go ahead and we'll go ahead and talk about kind of how to name our variables, because it's kind of important. There are a few different naming strategies you can use here. if you have something that's, you know, a longer word or 2 words even, you never want to do current space value. You never ever want to have a space in between your variable, or inside of your variable, because it's an invalid character. So the way we get around that is there's 2 ways. You can actually do an underscore there for the space, or some people like to do something called camel case, which is basically a lowercase first letter and then a uppercase letter for every other one after that. So current value is, or something like that. So you just go, like, it looks like a camel. You have the head, and you have the hump, and the hump. So that's one way you can do it. Basically, the other rules for variables are you can't have a number at the very beginning. You can't do this, for me. That's not a valid. You can't do that. You also can't use special characters. So if I were to do that, that cannot be a variable name because it has a special character in it. So there's a few things. I would suggest looking at the Python code style. It's called PEP. It's online. It's easy to find, and you can just kind of look through that and see what the, more of the rules are. So I would suggest, doing that. But first things first, let's go ahead and let's do our first real input program. So let's just, let's expand on our hello world that we had, right? So let's do hello world, like that. And I'm gonna put an exclamation point on it because it's happy to see us. And there we go. So now, if we ran this code, obviously all it would do would be print hello world in the console. But that's not all we want to do. We want to also have the computer ask us what our name is. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say, what is your name? Just like that. So now it'll print 2 lines instead of 1. Oh, excuse me, I have hiccups. So now you'll see, hello world, what is your name? Perfect. Great. Now we actually need to be able to take in the input. And the cool thing about this is it's really easy to do. All I'm going to do is make a variable called my name, and we're going to say equals, and then we're going to use this command. So we're going to type out input and then 2 parentheses, an open and a close. You always have to have an open and a close. If you just leave it open, you're going to get an error. So make sure you have both of those. So we don't have anything inside of that. That's okay. That's because this function doesn't take any parameters. And I know that sounds weird, but we'll get to what parameters are and what functions are a little bit later. But for right now, all you need to know is that this is how you get input from your program. So now, if we go ahead and just click run, you'll see it says that, and the program's still running now because it's waiting for our input. I can actually go down here and type my name, and now the program's over. Because basically we're just saving our name into this variable, but then we're not doing anything with it. So you know what, let's go ahead and do something with it. Let's have our computer greet us back, right? So it said hello, it asked us our name, now let's have it greet us. So I'm just gonna say print, and I wanna say it is nice to meet you. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a space at the end of here, and I'll show you why in a second. Because if you remember earlier when we were doing concatenation, if we don't put that space there, whatever I put next is just going to be smushed against that U. So I'm going to go ahead and add that space at the end. But we're not done with what we're typing inside of these parentheses. So we're going to then concatenate. Remember, that's just a fancy word for putting 2 words together, or 2 strings together. And we're going to add our variable. So just like that. So now, when I click run, it's going to say hello world, it's going to ask me my name, and then I can respond with my name, so I'm going to capitalize it this time, and you'll see it now gives us a message. It says, it is nice to meet you, Justin. So, there are a couple other things. I want to make this a little bit nicer. I'm going to go ahead and actually add a comma here so we're grammatically correct, and I'm going to concatenate a exclamation point onto the end of this, because I want my computer to be happy to see me. So, now we'll run it. you'll see I can still put my name in here. I can put any name, just so everybody knows. I'll put Jane, and it says, "It's nice to meet you, Jane," and it prints out, and that's great. So that's another thing we can do. So let's just keep going, and let's do a calculation based on this. So we'll do what's called a string operation. So a string operation is basically just taking a string and then returning some kind of value based upon that string. So in this case, we're going to get the length of our name. So getting the length of your name is really easy. It actually is provided for you through Python. They have a function that just does it for you. You don't have to worry about making your own. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and say print the length of your name is, and I'm going to do a colon because it looks nice, and I'll put a space there, just like that. So you can see now we have our print statement that'll print out a new statement. But then right below it, what we're going to do is we're going to say print, and now we're going to use that length function that I was just talking about. So to use the Python length function is really easy. All you have to do is type in len for length, and then you're going to add another set of parentheses, because this time you are going to give it a parameter, and that's just, again, a fancy word for giving it some kind of value to do something with. And the value we're going to give it, obviously, is our variable. So I'm going to say my name, and I'm going to close that, and I'm going to close it again. Remember, you always have to have an opening and a closing. Everyone should have a pair. So you'll see there that we now have a pair. So now, when I click run, it's going to ask me my name. I'm going to tell it. And you'll see it says the length of your name is 6. I could also combine this up here into this string if I wanted to, but sometimes it's just easier to do it this way. It looks a little cleaner if you just go down to the next line. So that's what I did. So that next line, it pops out, it does that. So let's go ahead and keep going with this idea. Let's keep adding stuff to our program here. Let's do, let's make our computer ask us our age. Maybe it wants to know how old we are. So we're going to do print, and then again, I'm just going to ask, what is your age? Question mark. Make sure you have pairs, always pairs, otherwise the computer will give you a syntax error. So now we're going to have it ask what our age, and we want to get that input. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a new variable called my age equals input, like that, and that will again allow us to put in some input. And then finally we will go ahead and print something. So we're going to go ahead and print how old we'll be in a year. We're going to go ahead and have a mathematical operation happen here as well. So I'm just going to say you will be, oops, there we go, see? Got ahead of myself and forgot the quotation mark there. So I'm going to make sure I get that, and I'm going to say you will be, and then I'm going to add that space at the end because I don't want everything to be smushed together, and I'm just going to say plus, because I'm going to concatenate now my new input onto this. So the important thing to know about this is if you look at this input, it's going to grab whatever you type in. But since you're typing in a number, it's going to grab it as an int. And you remember what happened when we tried to concatenate an int onto a string. I'll go ahead and show you again just so you kind of can see here. I'm just going to go ahead and say my age, like that. And go ahead and add the last little bit of this on here. All right. Okay, so now let's go ahead and give that a run, and you'll see that it did not like that because I left off my parentheses. But when you have that parentheses, you'll see that it asks you your name. You can give it your name. It'll return with those things that we have at the top. And now we can try to type in our age. So I'm going to type in my age, and it works. But we want to be able to add a number to that. So what happens if we try to do my age plus 1 right here, right? So this is already looking kind of ugly. So let's go ahead and try it, and I'll just run through quickly again. All right, you can see here it did not like that. Must be string, not integer. So it's trying its best to add these two things together. So let's try another solution. Let's try maybe putting them in parentheses like that. Maybe that'll help. Let's try it again. Here we go. All right, you can see that's still not right. So there's still something here we're missing. So maybe we're missing that this needs to be turned into a string, right? So the way you can do that is just say string, and it's going to change whatever is inside of here into a string data type. So even if we give it a floating point or an integer, it's going to turn it into a string so that we can, hopefully make this concatenation work. So let's go ahead and try it. So I'm going to just type my name again, I'm going to type my age again, and still it doesn't work. So the reason this still doesn't work is because the input that you're getting is a string. So we actually have to change my age to an int first so that we can add to it, and then we have to change it back to a string. So if we just look at the code that we have here now, you'll see I am taking the variable my age, which is holding our input. I am turning it into an int so that I can add 1 to it, and then I am changing that value back to a string so that I can concatenate. Now, let's see if this works for us. And my age, and we still are not having any luck here. So the reason we're not having any luck here is because it actually just needs to be str, not string. That is a small little hang up that I often run into. As you can see, I've been coding for a while and I still make mistakes. So don't get too down on yourself if you're making these easy kind of mistakes. It's really, really easy to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and try that one more time. Here we go. All right. There we go. So now it's working. So now we have a program that is asking us our name, greeting us, telling us the length of our name, asking us our age, and then finally telling us how old we're going to be in a year. It's really simple. It's not anything, super grandiose or anything like that, but it is a pretty fun little thing. And now you've, made a program that is more than just hello world. It takes input. It's pretty cool. So we're going to go over a few more things before we get out of here tonight. But the next thing I want to talk about is comments. So comments are really important for when you want to leave notes for someone else or even for yourself. Say I wrote this program 2 years ago and I just didn't remember how any of it worked because I didn't add any comments. Or if you're writing it in a big group and you send this code to somebody and maybe they don't understand how it works because you didn't do a good job of naming your variables. Maybe you just named them like A or something like that. Well, you can kind of get around that by using comments. So to type a comment in your code, all you have to do is type the little pound symbol or the hashtag, whichever you name it. I call it a hashtag more often than not. But you're going to just do your little hashtag here, your number sign, and then you're going to type whatever you want your note to be. So in this case, I'm going to say a variable that holds my name value. So now I've left a comment and everything's great. So now whoever comes along and sees this knows exactly what that variable does. Really, you shouldn't have to comment on a variable if you're doing a good enough job of naming your variables, but this is just an example. I just wanted to show you kind of what it looks like. So I'm going to go down here, and then I'm going to say, again, that hashtag, and I'm going to say asks for our age. There we go. So now we know what this does. It just asks for our age. So like I said, that's an easy way just to do comments. It's just an easy way to keep track of what you're doing. Another good use of comments is, say you have a line of code that you don't want to run anymore. All you're going to do is just right before it, put that hashtag, and you'll see it turns gray. That means that that line of code is going to be ignored by the computer, so it won't run. So now if I were to run this, for example, you know, it's going to, of course, ask me my name, but you can see here, it doesn't print out the length of my name because I've commented that line of code out. So anything in gray is basically just ignored. It's just for your eyes only, or whoever's eyes are looking at this. So it's you know, it's helpful. It's really helpful. Another thing let's talk about is another usage for print. So say, you know, you don't like all this being so close together. Say you want to put some extra space in between different things here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another line right here, but I'm just going to say print and then leave it completely open. Nothing inside of it. Nothing inside of it. And that is just going to add a blank line right after it. So you see now it is nice to meet you, Justin, space, and then the length of your name is. So if you ever just want some extra white space to, you know, make things look cleaner. So for instance, if I wanted to put right here, if I wanted to add some more white space, or if I wanted to add a little bit of white space down here, you know, you can add it in just by using those print statements, and that's the quickest and easiest way to do that. We've already talked about the input function. I think you guys kind of know how that works, how to print. The length function is really great if you're using it for strings. So the idea being, maybe you have this long string that has a bunch of values in it, and then you want to know the length of it. You have a long sentence like, I'm out here coding, something like that. If you put that inside of a length function, len, inside of those parentheses, it'll give you the exact length of that. So that's a pretty helpful function. And then let's just go ahead and talk about these string, integer and float functions as well. Like I said, they basically just, you pass a value to them and it's going to turn them into something else. So you have 3 different ones right now, at least, what we'll talk about. So you have your str, which will turn a number value into a string. You have your int, which will turn a string value, or a floating point value into an int. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly run and show you these. So Justin, I'm 25, and nothing happened because I didn't type out print here, but I'm going to go and do that real quick. So I'm just going to add a print statement around all 3 of these. Print int looks really weird, I just realized that. There we go. So we have print int. And now let's try and run this. There we go. Alright, so we have my name, we have my age, and you can see it's now printed out 25, 25, 25, because that's what I told it to do. With this int right here, when you're doing a double or a floating point number, it will round it. So it rounded it off, it truncated it, it took off that 0.5 and just made it 25. But that leads us to another interesting point, and that is that you can turn an int into a floating point number. So say you have an int that is 25, and you want to turn it into a floating point number. That's really easy to do. All you have to do is use the word float function, or use the float function, and put in a number. So I'm going to put 25, and it's going to run through all this again. So I got my name, I got my age, and you'll see it's turned that into a floating point number. You can also do this with words, which is a little wonky, but we'll go ahead and do it because I think it's fun. I'm gonna put my name in here, and we'll see what happens. Alright, so it didn't do it. It would not convert our string to a float. So, as you can see, float just takes the the number value there, which is weird because that documentation just told me that it would take a string, but that's okay. So you can turn your numbers, you can turn your doubles, you can turn your ints, your doubles, not your doubles, sorry, your floats, and your strings into different things using that kind of stuff. And you can, combine all these things together and make some really weird stuff if you were inclined to. So I think we're probably gonna wrap it up for tonight. That was about 45 minutes or so. I think that's a good amount of time. If you have any questions, just let me know. Like I said, this is just a very quick introduction. It was mostly meant to show you how to get Moo installed on your computer or set up Replit, or to just download Python and have it working for you. So I just wanted to, kind of put this out there and kind of show you what Python is and some of the syntax and some things like that. So it's a really simple, example, and I hope you, got something from this. And like I said, we're going to be doing these streams pretty often, I think. So we'll continue with this, maybe do some other stuff as well. If you want, tell us what you're interested in on Facebook or in our Discord, or even on our website if you want to just send us a message on there. It's Imagicode.co. That's IMAGICODE.co. You can send us a message on there about maybe what you would want us to do in these free sessions. So like I said, we're going to keep doing those, and I think that's about it for me tonight. So everyone, I hope you all stay safe and take care of each other, and I'll see you next time. Bye.